Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today we have to discuss assessments, concepts, and its issues. This is Dr Tatlah, and you are students from Master of Philosophy in Education, Educational Leadership and Policy. Let's see what assessment or testing is. Testing. Testing and our focus on what we do to learners after learning. That is testing about what learners have done after learning. To measure that is the testing, but the assessment a focus on what we do with learners before, during, and after learning. So assessment is some in-depth process knowing about before, during learning, after learning. Before is about the objectives, what to learn, and during learning is the process of learning. Afterwards, it's reflections. So in all these three phases, what the learners do and teachers do to know about that is all is assessment. Testing prepared administrative procedure that occur at identifiable times in curriculum, whereas assessment is appraising or estimating the level or magnitude of some attribute of a person according to Musavi. So testing is an administrative procedure to identify that occur at an identifiable times in a curriculum, where, when, how, at what time some of the tests have to be conducted, and whereas the assessment is basically estimating the level or magnitude of attributes of a person, what he have learned about that, and of what type and what category, what is the depth of his or her learning. That is about assessment. If we compare measurement with evaluation, then we can say that measurement is quantitative, whereas evaluation is qualitative. Measurement is in numbers, figures, charts, diagrams, graphs, or some likewise values, whereas qualitative evaluation is some interpretive form. Measurement is objective, whereas evaluation is personal, objective, subjective, personal and subjective. Measurement is precise and scientific, whereas evaluation is interpretive and philosophical. On different grounds of philosophy and grounds of philosophy, it has been interpreted in all its norms, features, factors, whereas precise and scientific process is about that the scientific methodology is used, that is comprised of the four components that make some identifying problem and taking observation, collection data, collecting information and data, analysis, and generalizing those results on the population. Not a continuous measurement, not a continuous process, it's occasional. But evaluation is a continuous process. That is why, on the basis of evaluation, uh, some of the decisions have been made uh, in the system of education, like we can say that is about grade point average, percentages, rank in the class, and evaluation is made on the basis of measurement. Measurement Measuring the observed performance of classroom learners. Quantitative, herein measurement involves assigning numbers, whereas in qualitative, it involves written description and oral feedback. Whereas evaluation involves interpretation of information. What of the information about the particular student, teacher, class, institution, department have been taken? It does not necessarily entails testing, rather evaluation is involved when results of the tests are used for decision making. For example, 40% is measurement, and if you tell the student that score resulted in failure, it's evaluation. I think so now it will be much clearer from the previous comparison. In assessment, for example, here we can see an engine of a car according to John Cohn. Assessment is the engine which drives student learning. The teacher who drives the students' learning. So the power or push or strategy or the methodology uh, that put power towards the students and make them ready to learn, and they they learn something. They are assessment and learning. They are interrelated and they go side by side. Teacher keeps giving feedback to the learner in light of which learning is improved. So these are the parallel methods. At the same time, both of the uh, activities, assessment and learning, are happening. There are two types of assessment, informal and formal. Wherein informal assessments, these are not standardized, whereas formal assessments are standardized testing. Also, informal assessments, no scores, whereas in formal assessments, scores are considered. Accordingly, informal assessments, no comparison to other students, whereas in the formal assessments, scores are compared among the students. Accordingly, information assessment, informal assessment, observing and interviewing is conducted, but assessments are summative or formative. And informal assessments are normal classroom environment, but formal assessments could go beyond normal classroom environment like testing faculties or conduction of some exams. Formative and summative assessment, you know, you are part of this system of examination, and specifically in the system of semester system. These two types of assessment, formative and summative, are carried out. Formative is throughout the year, allows teachers to follow up. If I quote the example of your semester, then there are the ongoing process of assessment, that is your quizzes, your assignments, your presentations, midterm examination, your conference, seminars, benchmarking, guest speakers, visits, field trips, lab works. So that is all is the component of formative assessment, whereas the summative is at the end of the year. Check the learner's mastery. That is the end semester examination, the final examination. So summative assessment uh, finally reaches when the different components of formative assessment has been carried out. Uh, in formative assessment, what is being done? Evaluating students in process of developing skills with an aim to help them to continue to growth. Thank you. Evaluating students in the process developing skills, because it's ongoing process and they are so this process developing the skills been through learning, through classes they go for learning, and wherein summative assessment, it occurs at the end of the course. It aims to measure what students have learned and how well have the accomplished the aims. Mean aims and aims of the course. It is summative assessment is conducted to measure the accomplishment of the uh, aims of the object uh, course. There are different criterion referenced and normed reference tests. Criterion assessments are provide information how the performance of an individual compares with that of the others, whereas norm reference assessments are these provide information on how the individual perform on some standards of object, whereas in criterion reference assessment, individuals standing is compared with that of a no group, that is known group, whereas norm referenced assessment is that allow users to interpret what an individual can do without considering the performance of others. Herein, the criterion referred assessment, people know the others and being with which they are compared, but in non-referent assessment, people don't know what the people, others, individuals within which they are being considered, compared. Criterion referenced assessment is a percentile rank that is obtained to determine the relative standing in a norm group, in a group at which percentile the individual stands. Whereas in norm referenced assessment, it is designed to measure the results of instruction. I mean, the teaching procedure or the instruction process, up to what extent is successfully carried out. Criterion referenced assessment emphasize the discrimination among individuals because it is conducted for comparison, whereas the norm referenced assessment is conducted to know about an individual's performance on a specific behavioral or instructional objective. This emphasizes to describe the performance. There are different kinds of tests, you know, like proficiency test, diagnostic test, placement test, achievement test, and aptitude tests. Let's discuss in detail all these types of tests. Proficiency test is about to know about the competency of the individual. For example, the purpose of proficiency test is to test global competence in a language. It tests overall ability regardless of any training the previously had in the language. For example, Cambridge, IELTS, and American TOEFL, etc. These all are the examples of proficiency tests. Whereas diagnostic test is its purpose is to diagnose the specific aspects of language. These tests offer a checklist of features for the teacher to use in discovering difficulties. It's based on that identifying teacher would know the needs of students that should have special focus. So here in the diagnostic test, uh, specifically it is conducted to identify some of the special needs, special requirements, and special aspects of any of the discipline to meet them. Placement test is basically for the induction purpose, where the people have to place recruitment type. The purpose of placement test is to place a student into particular level or section of language curriculum. It usually includes a sampling of the material to be covered in the various courses in a curriculum. Placement tests come in many varieties, assessing comprehension and production, responding through written and oral performance, multiple choice and gap filling formats, for example, in English as a second language placement test. So it categorizes, put the individual at a certain level or grade. Aptitude test is its purpose is the purpose of language aptitude test is to predict a person's success to exposure to the foreign language. Language aptitude tests does not refer to whether or not an individual can learn a foreign language, but it refers to how well an individual can learn a foreign language in a given amount of time and under given conditions. John Carroll and Stanley Seppen stated this and made the test known as the aptitude test towards know about the aptitude of the individuals, that up to what extent they are eligible to learn about that certain language. Achievement test, the purpose of achievement test is to determine whether course objectives have been met with skill acquired by the end of a period of instruction, for example, in the end of the semester. The test conducted is also known as the achievement test, on the basis of which it is being made that rather the objectives of that very much course have been met with the skill acquired by the students. Achievement tests are summative because they are administered at the end of the unit term of the study. It analyzes the extent to which students have acquired language that have already been taught. Issues in language assessment then and now. There are different types of issues: behavioral approaches, integrative approaches, and communicative approaches. So